I am in dire need of more yellow in my life. And I kind of remedied that by spinning this beautiful skein. However, as a skein, it's not helping me much in my need for more yellow. I want it as a wearable piece. In my previous video, where I spun this skein, I mentioned that I would like to have a vest. However, I couldn't find a vest pattern that would work for this skein alone. Luckily, I was a lazy spinner and did not do anything special to spin this skein. I just had been spinning my default spin, which means that because of course it is my default spin, I have more yarn in the same thickness. I'm going to make a yellow stripy vest. This one, to be precise. Now, before we can get started knitting with this, we need to get her into some kind of cake shape. And for that, my dear friends, the good people at Avocado have sent me their electrical yarn winder, which I think is a bold move because I primarily work with handspun yarn. So let's see if this electrical thingy can handle the handspun. Oh, that is, you know, slightly bigger than my old trusty yarn winder over here. Oh, will this be able to handle entire chunguses? A into part C. I think that's over here. Tiny screwdriver, tiny screw. I think I did that right. It's a lot more intricate situation over here than my previous one. That works, I guess. It's just going a little bit like it's pulling, janking, like zzz, zzz. This is not this machine's fault. This is my fault. My skein is a mess. That was because of the aggressive thwacking, I think. The instruction booklet told me that if the machine stops every now and then because of friction, to omit the first screw, well, the spiral, I don't know, thingy, what does it say? Spring, that's the word. And yes, indeed, now it is working a lot smoother for my yarn. Even though this is not bulky yarn, this is sport weight yarn, maybe DK if you stretch it. But I think the fact that it is hand spun and thus also not a perfect skein on my Swift made it a little bit harder on the machine. But now it's going smoothly when I skip that first spring. And this is approximately, no, this is approximately as fast as it will go. Whee! Watch it go. My, will you look at that? Whew. This is almost as big as my head. My traditional yarn winder could never, oh my god. Whew. A chungus wound in one cake, not several cakes, just one. So, this Avocado electric yarn winder did pass my handspun test, and I made it specifically difficult by taking a little bit tangled and felted yarn. It was also not consistent in width, which was another part of the test. Can this yarn winder wind a little bit of a tangled yarn that has inconsistencies? And yes, it could. It perfectly could. The motor stops whenever it encounters a snag, which is great because that means that it did not break my handspun yarn as it was winding it on. It gave me the time to, disengage the motor and then make sure that the tangle was resolved. For me personally, the biggest selling point for this yarn winder is the size of cakes it can make. Like, look at this thing, look at the cake that it made. Oh my god, if I spin more chunguses, like during For the Fleece or something, it can handle my chunguses in one piece, one big cake of yarn. Not just like 10 different and I have to like start over it all again. No, just one big cake of yarn. That to me is the biggest selling point for this yarn winder. Now, according to their website, they are at this point the biggest yarn winder on the market, and I kind of want to believe that. I myself, I am an able-bodied, very young person still, so the yarn winder being electric isn't really necessary for me. Like, it's nice that you don't have to crank all the time, but it wouldn't be necessary. I can still do that on my own, but I do see great accessibility potential for this yarn winder so that everyone is able to enjoy the beautiful uncaked skeins in like specialized yarn stores, and that it is not something that is only for the happy few. Down in the description you will find the link that will take you to the place where you can get this with a discount. For full clarity, yes, I do get a little bit of commission of that. So if you are interested in a yarn winder that makes the biggest cakes on the market, there is where you can find it. I'm always grateful for designers not telling me what kind of cast on to use. My preferred method of casting on is just knitting the cast on. Lordy lord, this cake barely fits into my yarn roll. Sometimes I get asked advice for picking knitting patterns for handspun yarn. Now, first and foremost, I want to say that knitting with handspun yarn isn't fundamentally different from knitting with store-bought yarn. It's yarn after all. So picking patterns for your handspun yarn actually just is a case of knowing what yarn you have. For example, when I was searching for a pattern to knit with this specific yarn to make a vest, I knew I wanted to make a vest, I came across this beautiful, intricate colorwork pattern. And I did not pick that because I knew my yarn. I knew that my yarn was unruly and inconsistent, and that was by design because I put some sari silk in there, so it's a little bit slubby whenever there is the sari silk inclusions. Also, it's not perfectly uniform in color by design. I threw all different kinds of yellow on my drum carder and then got this, which can be very beautiful in a colorwork design, but that was not what I was looking for. So since my yarn is unruly, inconsistent, and also has this beautiful color difference in it, I was looking for a little bit of a more simple pattern. Which is, of course, not to say that handspun yarn is made for simple patterns, or that simple patterns are the only thing that you can knit with handspun yarn. I think I have shown otherwise on this channel multiple times. You can knit, in theory, every pattern with handspun yarn. You just have to spin the right yarn for it. Know your yarn. What is your yarn going to do when you knit with it? Maybe knit a swatch first. I know I am going the way of do as I say, not as I do, because I did not knit a swatch beforehand to see how this yarn would interact with stitches. But I knew that a simple vest pattern would really make the qualities of this specific yarn shine. It's fuzzy and rustic and a little bit inconsistent, so this is a simple pattern with garter stitch and stockinette stitch. The inconsistencies are going to make this interesting. If you have a perfectly consistent yarn, then you can go for the really special patterns to make the knitting stand out. But for this one, I want the spinning to stand out. I want people to look at it and see within an instant, this is handspun yarn. So that is my number one advice for picking patterns for your handspun yarn. know what your handspun yarn does. Now, if that sounded like a load of bogus to you, then you're probably correct. And the only thing that actually should be a criterion of how you pick your patterns for your handspun yarn is, do you like this pattern? Do you want to knit it with your handspun yarn? That's actually the only question you have to ask yourself. Because, as I said, actually you can just knit everything with handspun yarn. I know that there are like special publications for knitting patterns for handspun yarn. I think they're redundant. Like, it's not that you cannot knit those patterns with commercial yarn, and it is also not the case that you can only knit those kinds of patterns with your handspun. Now, these bits of purple yarn that I will be using as a contrast color in this vest might be a trip to memory lane for some of you OGs in the audience. This was the contrast color for that stripy vintage pullover blouse that I was trying to make 2 years ago. But since I wasn't very knowledgeable in the ways of the grist yet, that was a failure. And I ripped it out. I frogged it to make another sweater, but I didn't include the purple that time. So now, 2 years later, after my initial failure, here we go again. Purple stripes. I right now have 2 of my contrast colors sandwiched between the yellow already as stripes. So my main color is garter stitch and the contrast colors are stockinette. However, I am at this point doubting my color choices because both these colors are actually a little bit too cold to work with the yellow alone. I hope that this pink will like tie it all together, but if it doesn't, if this pink does not have enough warmth in it, I think I might grab a skein of very bright orange commercial yarn just to give a little bit more warmth. Now, I also don't want every stripe to be a random color. I kind of wanted a color sequence, that is why I picked 3 colors, but I think with a 4th color it should also still work in the way that I had envisioned it. Because for right now the contrast is just too big. This is both too cold. I'll update you when I find a sequence that pleases my eye. This pink rose yarn softens the entire look immediately. Like, it references both this color and the brown in itself, but also has enough of that warm softness to tie it all together. Sometimes my physical eyes need to catch up to where my mind's eye already is. Like, I knew in my mind's eye that this was the combination that I wanted to use, that it was going to look nice. Like, it reminds me of Neapolitan ice cream. If I wear this, I'm going to look like an actual snack. We have a finished back piece. Yes. It's been a weird project because I've been going through cycles of really loving what I'm doing with these colors and then having weird thoughts. Like this morning, I passed it and suddenly thought, oh no, no. It's not giving piglet, is it? It might be a little bit piglet. Tonight I'm back in a stage where I really like what I'm doing over here and I'm super excited. I think with the added yellow in neckline and arm's eyes, we'll just tie it together. At least that's what I hope. But seeing it once again in the viewfinder, I'm liking it again. It's like with a painting, sometimes you have to step back, look through your eyelashes, and then you see the beauty that you're creating. Because sometimes you're just too close on the thing to see the bigger picture. I'm quite literally speeding through this project. Like, I've been working at this for a week now, and we're at the final pattern piece. I have finished one of the fronts. Might I be a fast knitter after all? But I also have been thinking about the fact that there is a little bit of an imbalance in the history of my channel. We're nearing 3 years now, and in those 3 years we have up until this point already made 4 vests. Am I counting correctly? Yeah, let's say that it was 4 vests. But of those 4 vests, 3 were in the last year. I made this one in May last year, and then I also made the Starnkieker and the Granny Square vest. And in the 2 years before that, I only made 1. I'm having a vest moment, really, this year. And it's not done. It is not done. Yesterday, I went to a local yarn store that was closing with some friends of mine, and I got yarn for another vest. I got these 2 colors of Linea Botanica. It's from Rico Design. This is pure wool and it is dyed with natural dyes. So something I could probably have done myself, but I didn't, and I wanted to support that closing yarn store. I'm going to make a Nordic bloom vest with this, and looking at this, I might also have a thing with purple and warm color combinations. Let me show you. First, this of course, this is yellow and purple. Last year in France, I bought a sweater quantity of yellow and purple, Plassard Valoir, very soft. Still need to find a pattern for this. I have some stuff in mind. And also last year, I bought during a clearance sale of my local yarn store, nearest to my mom, this combination of Rowan Island Blend Fine. You see it? Purple and yellow. That is a pattern to be perceived. What is currently your favorite combination? Do you have a combination that you instinctively gravitate towards right now? I don't know what got me into the purple-orange combination lately, because it's not been something that I have gravitated towards naturally all my life, but it seems in recent months that's what I've been liking. There we go, all 3 pieces of my linden button-up are knit. It's assembly time, and then I can start adding the armhole and neckband ribbing, for which I'm really looking forward. Firstly, and this might sound weird to some people, but I really do love knitting ribbing. There is just something about it that is very meditative, and I like the effect ribbing creates. Also, I think this will make my yellow yarn shine. When I add the ribbing, it will all tie together, and the yellow yarn is going to be the golden star of the project. Right now I feel like it sometimes plays a little bit second fiddle to the nice pinks and purples, but I started this project because of the yellow yarn, so I wanted to be the star of this vest. So with adding like more yellow everywhere, I think I'm going to achieve that effect. this vest has like just the right amount of boho vibes. I think it would be the prime candidate for my avocado pit buttons that I made a while ago. Don't you think? I think they would look great. In the comments, some of you have asked whether or not these will bleed when used and when they get wet. I have absolutely no idea. It's a very good question indeed. I have no answer. It might be because indeed avocado pits are a source of dye. I'm just going to risk it for a biscuit, I guess. I also don't plan on washing my hand-spun hand knits. It's just something I mostly don't do. And if you're wondering why I don't just seal them with like clear nail polish or some kind of varnish, the simple answer is I do not have that right now, and I also do not have the patience to go and fetch that before I finish this. Okie dokie, there we are with our yellow linden button-up. Tell me, what do you think before I start telling you what I think? Because I have been talking way too much in this video already. Let me know down below, what are your opinions on this piece? Because my opinion is a little bit mixed. I love the colors. They make me look like a snack. Specifically a Neapolitan ice cream sandwich. I like buttons. I just don't like the length. I think if I were to make it again, I would omit one stripe. And then it would be like neatly snatched onto my waist, which is exactly where I like my sweaters, my vests to end. But as you saw in the reveal shots, that is quickly helped with little belt. So if that is the only negative thing I can think about this piece right now, then I would say that is a grand success. All in all, I am very happy with this new hand-spun hand knit piece. Once again, this gives me also so much memories about the yarns, like the happy yellow yarn, and then the sample alpaca that I made for my bifurca vest, then the purple from the sweater that I frogged, and then the pink, I don't know if I told you, but that is like a sample spin from regenbogenwolle that I did entirely on spindles. So it's just such a wholesome combination of yarns that give me joy. As usual, I have linked the pattern to this linden button-up in the description box, so that if you like what you see and you want it for yourself, you can make it, of course. What I have also linked down below in the description box, as I have said before, is a link to purchase your own electric yarn winder from Kado if you want to omit stress on your wrists from winding cakes from your crafting experience. Thank you again to Kado for sending me their lovely yarn winder. And then all that there is left for me to say is, if you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe, but of course that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. But before we do that, here are some more knitting shenanigans.